Did you know that there's a cave in central Texas that was not carved by water at all, but by an earthquake? Or that one of the region's most famous swimming holes stopped flowing entirely in recent years for the first time in all of recorded history? Or that a river running straight through the middle of Austin used to be so violent and unpredictable that engineers eventually rebuilt its entire path just to make the city survivable? Here are 30 insane facts about Central Texas that will completely change the way you look at a map. Fact 30. Congress Avenue Bridge hosts the largest urban bat colony in North America. Beneath the Congress Avenue Bridge in downtown Austin, roughly 1.5 million Mexican free-tailed bats roost every summer, making it the largest urban bat colony on the continent. Each night, the entire colony emerges as a single sweeping cloud visible on weather radar, an entirely natural event that happens to unfold in the middle of a state capital. Fact 29. Enchanted Rock is the second largest granite dome in the United States. Rising nearly 425 feet above the surrounding grassland near Fredericksburg, Enchanted Rock is a massive pink granite batholith formed more than 1 billion years ago. It ranks as one of the largest exposed granite domes in the country, and the rock is known to creak and groan at night as it expands and contracts with temperature changes, a phenomenon that gave the formation its name centuries before anyone understood the geology behind it. Fact 28. Jacob's Well is one of the most dangerous natural swimming holes in Texas. Near Wimberley, Jacob's Well is an artesian spring that plunges into a submerged cave system extending more than 140 feet underground. The spring has historically flowed continuously for as long as records exist, though recent droughts have caused it to stop flowing entirely for the first time in documented history, a warning sign for the aquifer feeding it. Fact 27. Wonder World Cave formed from an earthquake rather than from water erosion. Near San Marcos, Wonder World Cave is one of the few caves in the world believed to have formed primarily through earthquake fault activity, rather than typical water dissolution. The cave sits directly on the Balcones fault line, and its jagged, angular chambers look distinctly different from the smooth solution caves found elsewhere in the hill country. Fact 26. San Antonio's river was reshaped entirely by human hands. The San Antonio River, which now flows gently past the city's famous Riverwalk, was extensively channeled, dammed, and redirected throughout the 20th century for flood control after catastrophic flooding in 1921. What tourists experience today as a scenic waterway is largely an engineered version of a river whose natural behavior once devastated the city it now attracts millions of visitors to. Fact 25. The unbelievable scale of Central Texas itself. Central Texas covers terrain more varied and more dramatic than most people expect from the middle of the state. The landscape shifts from rugged limestone hill country to blackland prairie to granite outcrops within a single afternoon drive. Most Americans picture Central Texas as simply ranchland and highway. The reality is a geography so layered that every assumption about it collapses the moment you actually look closely. Fact 24. The Balcones Escarpment is the line that splits Texas in two. Running from Del Rio northeast through San Antonio and Austin, the Balcones Escarpment is one of the most consequential geological boundaries in the American South. This ancient fault line marks where the limestone plateau drops abruptly to the coastal plains below, and the difference is sharp enough to see from an airplane window. West of the line, the terrain is rocky, dry, and hilly. East of it, the land flattens into rich black soil prairie. One fault line quietly decided where two different Texases would exist. Fact 23. The Edwards Plateau is bigger than several states combined. The Edwards Plateau, commonly known as the Texas Hill Country, spans roughly 25 counties and covers more than 20,000 square miles of limestone uplift. This plateau was carved by rivers over millions of years into a maze of canyons, springs, and rugged hills that most visitors mistake for a small regional attraction rather than the massive geological feature it actually is. Fact 22. The Edwards Aquifer sustains millions of people and one of the rarest ecosystems in America. Beneath the hill country lies the Edwards Aquifer, one of the most productive and heavily used underground water systems in the country. It supplies drinking water to more than 2 million people in the San Antonio region. And the remarkable part is, the very same aquifer is home to blind salamanders, fountain darters, and Texas wild rice, species that exist only in the springs fed by this formation and nowhere else on Earth. Fact 21. Barton Springs is a swimming pool fed by an aquifer most swimmers never think about. Barton Springs Pool in Austin is filled entirely by water rising from the Edwards Aquifer at a nearly constant 68 degrees year-round. The spring discharges millions of gallons daily and also happens to be the only home to the endangered Barton Springs salamander, a creature that survives in this single spring system and in no other place on the planet. Fact 20. The Llano Uplift exposes some of the oldest rock in Texas. Surrounding Enchanted Rock, the Llano Uplift is a geological island where Precambrian rock over 1 billion years old sits exposed at the surface, surrounded by much younger sedimentary layers. This ancient granite core is the eroded remnant of mountains that once rivaled the modern Rockies, worn down over hundreds of millions of years until only their roots remained. Fact 19. The San Marcos River flows from one of the largest springs in the American Southwest. The San Marcos River begins at Spring Lake, fed by the San Marcos Springs, one of the largest spring systems in the southwestern United States. The river maintains a nearly constant temperature and crystal clarity year-round, supporting 8 federally listed endangered species found nowhere else, all clustered around a single spring-fed headwater in the middle of a college town. Fact 18. Gorman Falls is a travertine waterfall growing in real time. Inside Colorado Bend State Park, Gorman Falls drops 70 feet over a formation of travertine, a mineral deposit built up continuously by calcium-rich spring water as it flows over the rock face. The waterfall is technically still under construction by nature itself, adding new mineral layers with every gallon that passes over it. Fact 17. The Colorado River in Texas has nothing to do with the Grand Canyon. Despite sharing the name with the river that carved the Grand Canyon, the Texas-Colorado River is an entirely separate waterway originating near Lubbock and running more than 800 miles to the Gulf of Mexico. Along the way, it has been dammed into a chain of reservoirs known as the Highland Lakes, reshaping the landscape around Austin into a string of artificial lakes. Fact 16. The Highland Lakes were built to control one of the most flood-prone rivers in the country. Before the dams, the Colorado River through central Texas was known for catastrophic flash flooding, capable of rising dozens of feet within hours. The construction of a series of dams in the 1930s and 1940s created Lake Buchanan, Inks Lake, Lake LBJ, Lake Marble Falls, and Lake Travis, transforming a dangerous flood corridor into one of the most popular recreational lake systems in the state. Fact 15. Longhorn Cavern was carved by an underground river that has since vanished. Longhorn Cavern near Marble Falls was carved not by dripping water, but by a fast-moving underground river that once rushed through the passage, smoothing its walls into curved, water-sculpted formations rarely seen in other Texas caves. That river disappeared long ago, leaving behind a cave system with a shape unlike almost anything else in the region. Fact 14. Natural Bridge Caverns is still actively forming beneath the hill country. Discovered in 1960, Natural Bridge Caverns near San Antonio contains formations still growing today, fed by mineral-rich water dripping through limestone from the surface. The cave takes its name from a 60-foot limestone bridge spanning its entrance, one of the largest natural limestone bridges in Texas. Fact 13. Airman's Cave is the longest known cave inside the city limits of a major American city. Beneath Austin's Barton Creek Greenbelt lies Airman's Cave, stretching more than 2,300 feet and considered the longest cave within Austin's city boundaries. Much of the passage requires crawling through tight limestone corridors that most residents jogging the greenbelt above have no idea even exist beneath their feet. Fact 12. The Devil's Backbone is a ridge road that follows an ancient fault. Highway 32 through Wimberley traces a narrow limestone ridge known as the Devil's Backbone, following the path of the Balcones Fault Zone with steep drop-offs on either side. Local legend has layered ghost stories onto the route for generations, but the geology alone, a spine of rock exposed by ancient fault movement, is dramatic enough without any of the folklore. Fact 11. Willow City Loop turns into one of the best wildflower displays on the continent each spring. Just north of Fredericksburg, the Willow City Loop is a 13-mile ranch road that becomes a nationally known wildflower corridor each April, when bluebonnets, Indian paintbrush, and dozens of other wildflower species blanket the hillsides in a display that draws visitors from across the country for only a few weeks each year. Fact 10. Texas bluebonnets barely exist without Central Texas limestone soil. The hill country's shallow, well-drained limestone soils are precisely the conditions bluebonnets need to germinate reliably in massive numbers. The same geology that created the Edwards Aquifer and the region's cave systems is also responsible for turning entire hillsides blue every spring, an accident of rock chemistry mistaken by most people for simple seasonal beauty. Fact 9. The Texas Hill Country wine industry is built on the same geology as Tuscany. The limestone soils of the Edwards Plateau are geologically similar to the limestone-based soils found in Tuscany and the Rhone Valley in France. The hill country now contains more than 50 wineries, making it the second largest wine region in the United States by visitation. The same plateau that creates the Edwards Aquifer also creates the mineral-rich, well-drained soils behind Texas wine, now earning national recognition. Fact 8. The LBJ Ranch sits on a land that shaped a president's understanding of water. Along the Pedernales River, near Stonewall, the LBJ Ranch was where President Lyndon B. Johnson grew up watching the river flood and recede unpredictably across hill country limestone. That first-hand experience with drought and flash flooding in this exact landscape later influenced federal water policy decisions made decades afterward in Washington. Fact 7. The Pedernales River can rise 30 feet in a matter of hours. The Pedernales River, running through the hill country toward the Colorado River, is known for some of the most extreme flash flooding in the country because of the region's thin soil and exposed limestone, which allow rainfall to run off almost instantly rather than soaking in. The riverbed that looks calm and shallow on a dry afternoon has been the site of sudden historic flooding within hours of a single storm. Fact 6. Central Texas sits inside a region nicknamed Flash Flood Alley. The combination of steep terrain, thin soils, and intense rainfall bursts has earned the Balcones Escarpment region the nickname Flash Flood Alley among meteorologists, an area responsible for some of the deadliest flash floods in United States history. The same limestone hills that create scenic swimming holes and waterfalls are also responsible for turning ordinary creeks into life-threatening torrents with almost no warning. Fact 5. Pack Saddle Mountain holds some of the oldest exposed rock formations in the state. Near Kingsland, Pack Saddle Mountain exposes ancient schist and granite dating back over 1 billion years, part of the same Llano uplift geology responsible for the Enchanted Rock. The mountain's layered rock face reads like a timeline of Texas geology, stretching back to a period before complex life existed anywhere on Earth. Fact 4. Central Texas Blackland Prairie is one of the most destroyed ecosystems in North America. East of the Balcones Escarpment, the Blackland Prairie once stretched across millions of acres of some of the richest farmland soil in the country. Today, less than 1% of the original tallgrass prairie remains intact, making it one of the most thoroughly converted ecosystems on the continent, quietly erased by the same agricultural success it made possible. Fact 3. Central Texas sits above a fault system still active enough to matter. The Balcones Fault Zone, though ancient, remains geologically significant enough that engineers factor it into infrastructure planning across the Austin and San Antonio metro areas. Small, largely imperceptible seismic activity has been recorded along portions of the fault, a quiet reminder that the boundary splitting the state's geography is not entirely finished moving. Fact 2. West Cave Preserve packs a rainforest-like canyon into the middle of dry ranchland. Along the Pedernales River, West Cave Preserve contains a moist, shaded grotto with ferns, maidenhair, and a waterfall pouring into a spring-fed pool, a microclimate so different from the dry cedar and oak terrain surrounding it that crossing into the canyon feels like crossing into an entirely different ecosystem within a few dozen steps. Fact 1. Central Texas is where limestone, water, and fault lines built an entire region's identity. No other part of the state sits at the intersection of as many overlapping geological forces at once: an ancient granite core, a plateau of porous limestone, an aquifer feeding millions, and a fault line splitting the terrain in two. Every hill, spring, cave, and wildflower field in the region traces back to this same set of underlying forces, arriving together in a landscape that most people drive through without ever realizing how much is happening beneath the surface. Now that you've explored all 30 of these incredible geography facts about Central Texas, which one amazed you the most? Let us know down in the comments and see how many people picked the exact same fact as you. And if you want to keep discovering more hidden geography, history, and natural wonders from across the country, be sure to check out the next video on your screen now. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so we can keep exploring together. Thanks for watching.